Take me back to the start.
I've been looking for something that would give me peace of mind. You make me insecure. I pretend that it's good when I'm not.
You think about it, 'cause I'm dying, baby. If you want it, you just have to take it. If you feel something, boy, you gotta tell me. No, I'm lying.
Cause I'm hurting, cause I'm bleeding, going crazy.
Dear friends, please take your seats. Mr. Chairman, dear Manfred, ministers, colleagues, friends from the EPP Group and EPP Party and national delegations, dear all, it's my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of Isamaa Party and of course myself, because that is one thing which I really wanted to do. And I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the afternoon here. It is actually the very first EPP Group external meeting which deals with the security and defense issues, and this time we talk about Europe's security and especially security in the Baltic Sea region. With our distinguished keynote speakers and with the two panels, we aim to look into the current security environment and try to draw some conclusions for security and defense for ourselves and for the EPP Group. It is my privilege to begin this exchange with some observations which I believe might stimulate our following debates. First, I would suggest that we had it coming for some time already. Russia has pushed the boundaries literally and metaphorically since the first Chechen war in mid-1990s. Russian imperialist school of thought is and has always been there, no matter what political system or the ideology they embrace. Expansionist force has been driving the empire through the Tsarist, the Soviet, and now the modern day Russia. And the West has been very slow to learn, very often in complete denial about what is happening at our very doorstep. Waking up has been a painful process, and I have witnessed it myself in the European Parliament as well. 30-something years of decisive peace has poisoned our minds. Russia's successful attempt to create dependencies in the West are evident. Links and connections between the West and Russia that were once seen as tools to tame the bear have turned to be the chains for us. These chains seem to attack the decision-making in the capitals of Europe, even now, where there is hard evidence that Russia's goal is to break the system that our way of life is based on. And this, my friends, is simply unacceptable. Secondly, Ukraine is fighting our war. And the only way Ukraine can be victorious is when the West, when we ourselves acknowledge that this is our war too. The shipments our Ukrainian friends are expecting come often too little, too late. The tanks from Germany, too little, too late. Russia's war machine cannot be stopped without coordinated and substantial assistance from Europe and US. So once again, weapons, weapons, and more weapons. I believe that we are often unaware of how expensive it is to fight and how little the West has actually been giving yet. I bring you an example. Germany produces in its whole defense industry in 6 months of production as much ammunition as Ukraine is using it in one single day. The average expenditure among the NATO nations from 1970 to 75 was above 3% of the GDP. This was during the peak of the Cold War. not the hot war. Are we in much safer place today? I believe we are not. Third, we are in Tallinn today, just some 80 kilometers from Helsinki, and Stockholm is not far away either, 100 something. This is one of the biggest dilemmas today. What should the West do? I'm talking about the accession of Finland and Sweden, of course. The different views cycling, some of them intellectually challenging, and I hope you all have seen, or I believe you all have seen, Mr. Bolton, who suggested that we should throw Turkey out of NATO. That is today's news. Dear friends and colleagues, I would leave you with that, and I hope that we will have an afternoon full of honest and open exchange of views. You're very welcome again, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Riho, for your warm welcome today in Tallinn. It's great to be here, and it's really great to have so many friends from, let me say, the security community of the EPP together here in Tallinn today. It's great to have our key speaker, Foreign Minister Urmas, that you are with us today. It's great that we have also friends from the European Parliament. Let me first of all mention the Chair of the Foreign Affairs Community, David McAllister, who is with us. It's so great to have also from the NATO our friends there. So Margareta, thank you so much for joining us and being today with us and contributing to the broader discussion from an EPP point of view. We have the OSCE background, which is also part of the broader security discussion on the European level. And I want to mention Željana as our Vice President in the EPP Group, taking care about coordinating, bringing things together. I thank you for all your engagement in this important idea and mission. I think there is no better place to talk about security, European level and also national level in the EPP family than here in Tallinn, in Estonia, to have this place chosen for this debate. First of all, about Isama's leadership, so about our party, who is having the flag of defense and security in her hands here in the country and was always strong on this. It's always impressive to see that Estonia, as a country, managed to have, I think, compared with the other European countries, the highest level of investments into Ukraine. It was about 1% of the GDP, 40% of the military budget here in this country goes to our Ukrainian friends. So compared with others, it's really a lighthouse, a symbol about what can you do if you really see the reality and if you're really ready to do the necessary decisions and the steps. That's my congratulations to Estonia, also to our party here, that you are frontrunner in this debate. It's also clear that defense and defending freedom is part of the Estonian DNA, having the history of the country in mind. Having this debate in mind, I must tell you that yesterday I was in my constituency in Bavaria. I did a lot of events there, and I tell you that this readiness to stand up and to defend the European way of life is not equally strong implemented in all countries of the European Union. Let's be honest about this. And in the Western side, in Germany, in France and so on, there we are facing problems to give people a good understanding that you have to stand up and defend your way of life if you want to keep it. And I think the Estonians also have in mind what it means to be occupied, to have Moscow as a ruling city, as a ruling power in mind. But this was not breaking up the Estonian spirit, and that is what we also can learn here in Estonia. So that's why it's a great place to be here. And I also want to share with you one of my personal impressions which I got when Riho TERRAS was in December 21 in my office in Brussels. I don't know whether I tell people now a secret, Riho, you have to stop me about this. But I tell you now that he was in my office, we were together, had a bilateral meeting, and then in December 21, Riho told me that around February, mid of February, the war will start. Nobody really believes it, but I tell you the war will start. And that's why I have only to say that the Estonian army, Riho, you with your contacts were better informed than a lot of secret services in the European capitals. So that also gives us a good impression. Yes, congratulations to this. That also gives us a good impression that, and a good idea that Tallinn is a great place to discuss this. I like to see that EPP together is discussing this. Macron said to NATO brain death. The socialists, Michael, for example, in Germany, said that 2% is not necessary in former times. That was the socialist message. And the Greens always voted in the European Parliament against every single decision to strengthen defense in our European Union. That's a reality of the other parties. That's why we can be proud about the main message that EPP is a security party of Europe. We are the party of defense, and Riho already mentioned it, that our Finnish and Swedish friends are now on their way towards NATO, and they ask for becoming NATO member, is a huge success. And I also was proud when Ulf Kristersson was first time in the European Parliament presenting the Swedish presidency. I was proud to say that we as EPP, there was no need on giving us any kind of lessons, because we always fought for NATO membership, where the other socialists didn't do so. So that's why we can be proud that our parties in Sweden and Finland always stood firm on this approach, whether the wind comes from behind or whether it comes from the front. So you always fought for this. Congratulations, and hopefully we can quickly and easily, after the Turkish problems, welcome you in the NATO family. And then finally, dear friends, from my side, as an EPP Group President and Party President, let me simply give you some ideas about when we have a broader perspective for defense in front of us, and when we listen now to the debates, also from Urmas now as a key speaker. You know, the first key question is more money. It's obvious that we need more money for defense on European level. The second consideration is for sure that when we have the middle and long-term perspective in mind, then we have to consider what can we do to make defense more efficient on European level. And when I see that, for example, the Polish friends are now buying their new tanks in South Korea, then it is probably not the best way to strengthen European defense. So how can we build up a European market for military goods to be stronger, to be more competitive in this field? More effective is in the field of cyber or in the field of missile defense system for Europe. Is there a European approach probably the better approach next to the purely national approach? So can we do more there together, more effective together? And then obviously the key question is, what can this mean just to build up a European defense pillar? What does this mean for our promise as EPP that NATO is the fundament of everything, that NATO is the backbone of our defense, it's a key pillar for our defense, but we are not far away from Helsinki. And then it comes to my mind when Putin and Trump already once met in Helsinki. They closed the door, they sent out all the experts of the meeting room, and they were sitting together. And dear friends, this moment of history, imagine this would happen today. Imagine this would happen today, where we as Europeans were only observers next to American presidents, where we could not be 100% sure what will he discuss there with Putin. Will he split up Ukraine? Will he change the European security architecture without us? That is not hopefully the future, but it was already once the reality. That's why we have to prepare for this. I think that is what must drive our EPP debate. And I say this because especially together with NATO Assembly, with the OSCE colleagues, we have to consider what is now the next step. And on OSCE, first of all, I would say that is the backbone of European way of life, of what we believe in and our values, and how can we develop this as a European pillar for our architecture, security architecture for the future. That is today an important discussion for this, because we are preparing also for us on European level the election, our programmatic approach. In 1 year's time, we will have our EPP Congress, where we will vote on our program. And there, I hope that we can really present to European people, to the citizens of Europe, that we have a good plan on the long run how to establish a new functioning architecture for the security of Europe after our Ukrainian friends have won the war. Thank you so much having you here. It's a great moment to be here in Tallinn, and let's have a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And dear Chairman Weber, dear Minister, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to welcome you today on our EPP Group external meeting, and I would like to thank also the Estonian delegation for hosting us in this beautiful city of Tallinn. As a Vice President of the EPP Group in the European Parliament, I'm charged with the coordination of our group positions with that of our EPP family in the Parliamentary Assemblies of the OSCE, NATO, and the Council of Europe. While the EPP is well represented in these political fora, the different delegations act sometimes without adequate understanding or communications and our policy coordination. Our goal, and Chairman Manfred's goal, is to create a better understanding of what is at stake on the various fora and to bring our EPP family on one line. This joint endeavor will strengthen our party's influence and will allow us to occupy a more prominent position in European politics. This coordination will also increase the support for our members in the different parliamentary bodies and those candidates aiming at leading position in internal elections. Once EPP members get elected as senior member in a higher position, it is of utmost importance that they continue to reaffirm us as a family and to protect our values. Today's conference is the first one of a series of events that we are organizing in this light, and I'm happy to see high-level participation from all these parliamentary assemblies. As kick-off event, we start with discussion on a matter that is crucial to all of us, our European security. It is almost a year ago that we were all shocked and dismayed by the illegal and unjustified invasion of Ukraine by Russian military forces. During these 11 months of war in Ukraine, a series of policies across Europe took place and reshaped our security and defense perspective. From the very start of the invasion, the European Union and its member states have shown their solidarity with the people of Ukraine. From hosting refugees to providing humanitarian aid and military equipment to implementing severe sanctions against Russia. But the impact goes beyond these actions. Denmark has used its opt-in clause to join European defense policies. Sweden and Finland have decided to change their stance on neutrality and applied for NATO membership. Germany has altered its perspective on military support with its latest culmination last week's decision to deliver tanks to Ukraine. Next to the effects of the war, such as the current energy crisis, European citizens place security and defense at the top of the political agenda. We as the EPP family have already been for a long time frontrunners in calling for appropriate European common security and defense policy. I welcome David McAllister and Tom van der Kandelaren, and their reports has been adopted a few weeks ago in a plenary session in European on the state of foreign and security policy, and they will have more opportunity to tell us throughout the panel's discussion. Our capacity to ensure peace and stability on our continent and in our own neighborhood and to prevent threats from inside and outside must be put at the heart of Europe's action. For years, Europe has been underinvesting in defense. While in times of peace, military investment seems to be obsolete, it is clear from today's experiences that we cannot risk to be unprepared and unable to defend ourselves and our partners. The best way of investing is when we can do it together. Although PESCO and CARD system facilitate a joint project in defense spending, these initiatives are not sufficient. More is needed to optimize our common approach, ability, and agility. We should also welcome the recent joint declaration between EU and NATO that sets out shared vision how the EU and NATO will act together against common security threats. While we certainly focus in today's discussions on the security situation in our eastern neighborhood, we should not forget to think beyond this region and to reflect on the impact of the war in Ukraine for our partners in Western Balkan and even in our southern neighborhood. Russia is using its influence in these areas to disseminate disinformation about the war and about EU policies. Despite the slow progress over the years in European integration of the Western Balkan countries, many European member states start to understand that EU enlargement is a peace and security issue. With the recent Council decision to grant candidate status to Ukraine and Moldova, but also to Bosnia and Herzegovina, the EU sends a strong message of support to our partners. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to the panel debates, to the open exchanges of view, and to your input. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our keynote speaker of today, the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Urmas REINSALU. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, Happy New Year. President Weber, Madam President of OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, David, Prime Minister Kubilius, and all friends from Europe, and of course also all Estonian friends. The war now will become, in this stage, almost a year case. And Russia has not given up any centimeter of its strategic intent. This is the context. We are having this important security conference. I'm truly proud for Riho of his initiative, all the EPP staff being so supportive. And this is a particular moment for us, because now, like-minded politicians, we should cooperate as vitally as we can. Of course, Ukrainian victory is a fully bipartisan effort. But we know that our determination for security, for further investments to defend freedom, is not an issue of bad times. We understand the importance to buy umbrella also when there is sun on the sky. And so this is, we have to do continuously. Estonia is going from next year to give from its GDP around 3% to defense. And we just a week ago presented also to Parliament a new national strategy where it will be fixed. Minimum 3% will be a new threshold to invest national security for Estonia. And our continuous pledge surely is to all Europe to follow the case. Well, we see now, and it is not surely the coincidence, that countries of our region are making vast investments, and we do not see any alternative. Strategic sovereignty, this and European Union as a global player, what Madame von der Leyen put a Commission's task or ambition. Now it has appeared as a practical need to survive. I would put it to that context. Speaking about the practical tasks to do, right now, literally today, is first a further military investment to Ukrainian victory. And it was particularly this target and the message we wanted to carry on when we put a new military aid package to Ukraine, which is on the way, and this is a 1% altogether in combined manner. We are now are going and have delivered to Ukraine 1% plus of our GDP. And this has been and it will be our call to all friends to follow the same path. The war is very expensive, as from the humanitarian angle, but surely from the military logistical perspective, what Riho referred. And to put to the contexts, the still, well, tens of billions what all the Western community in a combined manner has delivered to Ukraine, and put it to the perspective, I looked at combined military operation effort of the United States, taking into consideration also interests of Iraq and Afghan, costed $8 trillion plus. So $8 trillion plus. And now we are having a full-scale war in our continent. So this effort, what we have done, is far from sufficient, because this gradual delivery, we have to admit that when you are doing the second portion of ammunition delivery, the first is already gone. And so we have to change the paradigm of military support to Ukraine, that not as much as is needed that Ukraine will not lose, but as much as it is needed that Ukraine will win. And it should be our target of paradigmatical investment. We are making investment decisions from the moral course, from our own security course, from the humanistic perspective. And in that context, this year, Russia strategic intent could be also to prolong this year in the tempo as it has occurred to be for years and years. And this should be for us not acceptable looking to our intent. They want to create Ukraine as a failed state in that context, to erase its survival. And we should continue by doing that. And surely there will be a lot of debate on German tanks. Thank you, brothers and sisters from CDU, for very clear, strong messages. And I remember when we were Bundeskanzleramt in last spring, Andrews chaired the mission, you spoke about murders in last May. And now, some weeks ago, we got the press release about murders. So your call was echoed during the half a year. And now the Ukrainian friends are speaking about the planes, fighters, they are speaking about the long-range missiles without caveats, any political caveats. The second element is continue sanctioning Russia. We have not managed to the target we have put yet, and we have to admit that. One very important element is that we should not, with further sanctioning, create to the current sanctioning restrictive system derogations. It was a sad case what took place in last December. And my pledge in December Foreign Affairs Council was that we will not, with several like-minded countries, accept it anymore during the course of procedure of 10th package. No any derogations to current system. Secondly, what we should do is the issue of Russian crude oil price cap. We accepted it in December. Poland, Lithuania, as it was then stated that we are going to review it in 2 months phases with intent that it should be lower 5% than an actual market price of Urals oil. Now it is so that crude oil market price is far higher than this oil price cap, and it should be reviewed. This is going to be one of the, I think for us, of the most important debates now we are going to have in Coreper. Issue of accountability. I truly welcome these countries who have passed a decision to join the core group of accountability, with a particular intent to encourage all the international community members to create a particular tribunal on Russian crime of aggression. And surely, some might ask, is it a case where does mean any practical importance? It has a tremendous legal and moral importance, and also political importance, because this is a litmus. If we will put it that also the top political and military leadership of Russia should be taken should follow all the responsibility for the crimes they have committed. So it means that we can't accept any return to the business as usual with Putin regime, whatever course the war and political situation in Europe will not take. So all the calls about speaking about the new security architecture of Europe and giving any guarantees to Putin or Putin regime Russia in that context, I think they do not deserve moral relevance. Let me say it honestly. Of course, this is very important. The debate, which should already now to be put on the table. We are speaking about that. This is Ukrainians' issue to create peace. These Ukrainians will make a decision. But it is also an issue that we will give a strong and solid support to President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan on behalf of our party family. And secondly, what is very important also, that what is our view on European security environment in that context, from my understanding, that the precondition should be that after the war, the Russia should be not in position, or we should, in an appeasement mood, allow Russia to continue to dictate a way of life to its neighbors. So and therefore, well, it is, of course, in NATO many cabinets elephant on the room, but surely we see a future of Ukraine as we see as a full member of the European Union, also as a member of NATO. Because if we fail in strategic perspective in delivering that, well, it puts a strong threats also whether we truly have learned from this context, which by actions, by not doing enough, has appeared to take these atrocities in our eyes. And also very practical issue is to encourage Commission to work out a mechanism of seizure of frozen Russian assets. Well, all together, all combined, we have delivered Western community to Ukraine as an aid, military, humanitarian, economic, far less than 100 billion. So it is times more that is now frozen in Western financial centers, and it will be a game changer if we will succeed to do that. It is said that it is not in context of either European Union law or in context of current international law precedent. So we need to develop international law, and we need to develop European Union law regulations. This is, I think, this is a first there should be will. And also in that context, we have reached now to upgrade the European Peace Facility amounts. Surely it is an issue of weeks or months when the new tranches will empty it. So there should be a fully new altitude in the paradigmatical change perspective that we need to invest to Ukrainian victory. So already in United for Ukraine community, we discussed already basically last spring, the amount should be 50 billion euros plus. And surely we need to invest as much as it is needed. And let me also state that very important is surely to continue with tackling the Russian propaganda. This is a vital part of our security. There are still satellites owned by European by companies situated in European continent, well, transmitting Russian propaganda channels. This is a problem. And also, I very much applaud to the must to immediately develop particularly European defense industry. So we need, as we spoke, we remember with the coronavirus, we need to be capable to produce masks. Now we need to be capable to produce all the range of weaponry. So the times are going to be harsh. We are in the midst of war and in the midst of crisis. And what should lead us is first determination and understanding of our current generation political leaders' responsibility in Europe. The history is made on our eyes. And this is not a film script which is written. No, the things could be turned worse and things could be turned better. But one thing is sure, that Ukrainians hope and trust on us, and we can't betray their trust. In the sake of the values we share, in the sake of human dignity, in the sake of freedom of Europe. So long live Ukrainian victory, long live Europe, long live freedom and European People's Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Urmas. And
Keynote, President of the EPP Group with the Parliamentary Assembly of OSCE.
Yeah. Mul on hea meel tervitada EPP Euroopa Rahvapartei kolleege Tallinnas. I'm very happy to welcome EPP colleagues in Tallinn to discuss very important topic of defense and security in these very difficult times. We have had already keynote speeches, and everybody was focusing on the main issue, how to help Ukraine to win the war which they are fighting for us, for whole Europe, for European values, and how to manage to get Europe to understand that not only in Ukraine is in war, but the whole of Europe is in war. So we need to beef up our capabilities and capacities of our defense industry to fight this war to the very happy end of full victory.
Yeah, it's great to be in Tallinn. The European People's Party is the biggest party in Europe. We have the biggest group in the European Parliament. And I'm proud to say that the EPP party is the security and defense party of the European Union. So when you compare it with the others, Emmanuel Macron said once as representative of the liberal parties that we have a brain death of the NATO. That was his messaging. The socialists, I'm coming from Germany, I can tell you, socialists never really believed and supported the idea of 2%. Only recently they are now ready to invest more. And the Greens and other left parties always opposed in the European Parliament decisions against more investments, more activities on the security field. That's why I'm proud to say that the EPP is the security party, it's a defense party of Europe. I give you another example. We have also in our debate today friends from Finland and Sweden with us. So for the Nordic dimension of NATO, of defense, our EPP parties in Finland and in Sweden were always in favor of joining the NATO. And now they managed to convince majority in the parliament to do so. And here in Estonia, it's the same. So our friends from Isamaa are really frontrunner in this regard. It's great to have the foreign minister of Estonia in our ranks, in our team, that we can show that we are fighting for this. Tallinn is a great place. You can be proud about what you are doing here in defending Ukraine, in assisting, helping Ukraine with the investments, with the money, but also with the military support. That is, Estonia is in this way a symbol for the rest of Europe. That is what you expressed also today in your statement. And that is what we want to send as biggest party of Europe to the rest of our partners in Europe, that we have to be firm, we have to stand together, we have to defend our European way of life. And that means today to support our Ukrainian friends. What they did, what they delivered in the last month is already an incredible success story. They fought against the Russian aggression and they were successful. And that's why we can show, we can give the proof that the investment is a good investment, that we can there stop the Russian aggression for another world. So it's about our values, it's about an attack against all of us. That's why we have to be united. And finally, we have today also the chance to show that the international cooperation works. So being for Isamaa part of a bigger, broader political family, like Riho as the Estonian voice in this biggest political group in the European Parliament, but also for our ministers on national level to be part of the biggest political family is really an added value. So for the upcoming also decisions here in Estonia, good luck for the elections. And we can really offer to citizens that if you vote for Isamaa, you vote for a national perspective, but you also have a strong alliance, a strong partners on European level. That's what we can offer next to the national perspective to the voters here in Estonia.
Ukrainian victory is a bipartisan effort. but we should use the like-minded political family, all the effort, and to coordinate intensively what should we do to defend Europe, to defend and support Ukraine. And today I'm so proud to receive the President of European People's Party here, the members of fraction, also the Madam President of OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, and also the Chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee of European Parliament, David McAllister, who is also the co-chair of European People's Party Group of Foreign Ministers. So it's basically half of Foreign Ministers of European Union. And before every Foreign Ministers meeting, we do have our inner coordination of positions. So our message here from Tallinn is steadfast. We need to act. We need to do more to support freedom of Europe, to support Ukrainian victory. And Isamaa, from our part, will be ready in our national merit to do it, and in full cooperation in European Union institutions level, also between the member states' political parties. We will continue and rise our actions. Thank you.
I have a question about Turkey. We can curse Sweden, we can curse Turkey, but in practical terms, those two countries have to be reconciled to get Sweden to NATO. So what can be done in practical terms by other countries to reconcile those two countries? I know that Minister REINSALU will have to do it, roll up his sleeves and start doing it on Wednesday, but the others as well. What would be the recommendations?
Recommendation is what is most important, dialogue. And if there is indeed a certain issues turn to be heated as they have apparently been. So I think it's reasonable for a second to take also a pause. So in the sake of continuing on the basis of dialogue, and I think on the earth, our region countries are the most interested people who would like to see a positive outcome as near as possible by the ways of diplomacy now has challenged us.
Well, having in mind that the overwhelming majority of countries already ratified the NATO request from our Finnish and Swedish friends, for me they are in a way already part of our family. So I cannot imagine that we would stand aside if there would something happen. So that's why it's a legal step which is necessary, but emotionally, politically, also from a unity point of view, I think they are already part of our family. You know, next to the strongest pillar, the backbone of security about next to NATO, we also are part in the European Union. There we also have a legal assurance that we stay together. And towards Turkey, I think dialogue is important. I think also that we have to recognize that there are elections going on in Turkey. Let's be aware about this. But I also have to clarify that if the resistance from Turkey will really continue, then you know, it's really hard to understand this, and the Turkish side must know about this, that this kind of resistance is not, for the rest of the NATO partners, not an understandable step. And that can also be a burden for the long-term developments and for also our EU-Turkey relationships, especially on economic issues. Turkey is heavily depending on the access to the European markets. So I think for the moment dialogue is important, and let's wait for the elections there taking place in a few weeks. And then hopefully we can find solutions, and hopefully then things will not getting more difficult also for Turkey.
Well, and from my side, I have seen many differences around the NATO table through 7 years sitting in the military committee. I've seen the situation where nobody agreed or many people were different opinions, but on the very end, NATO has always successfully found the common grounds, and even Estonia joined NATO already several years ago. So it is possible the dialogue helps.
Good afternoon, thank you. I have two questions. First for you, Minister, I was wondering, how do you evaluate the security situation at the moment in Estonia, considering that the war has consequences on the whole continent? And if this is, since we are in the Baltic Sea region, is it any sort of worry that you are sharing with your colleagues, ministers, and if you believe something should be done on this that is not being done at the level of the European Union at the moment. And maybe for you, members of Parliament, I was wondering, how do you see the creation of a Committee on Security and Defence in the Parliament, and if this is something that could actually give the Parliament a more of a voice on European diplomacy and European security? Thank you.
Well, speaking about the tactical perspective of possible invasion of Russia towards our region, no, this is not predictable as a tactical option in the nearest future, in the context of they have now most of their combat units moved towards Ukraine. But of course, from the strategical perspective, this is not particularly about the neighboring countries of Russia, but also to the whole Europe. The European security architecture is in ruins. And so this is a reality. As a large-scale genocidal type of war is going on, and we do not see where the end could be. So, and in that context, it is an existential interest of European Union. Member states have a new agreement of ambition how to collectively to develop national military capabilities, particularly with intent to raise the altitude of a new military might, and secondly also to invest to a defense industry of Europe. This strategic sovereignty should also consist of our capability to produce all the weapons what we need, and also the capability to have in possession weapons we need to defend our people and our freedom. And so these are the main message. But of course we are, and I described it also, we are under the continuing different hybrid attacks by Russia, and we are prepared to any kind of provocations as against Estonia, as against other our allies.
Yeah. You know, for the Parliament, you have already a subcommittee on defence in the, let me say, under the umbrella of the Foreign Affairs Committees in the European Parliament. So that is already a good structure. So I think we as Parliament gave already the indication that we care about this issue. We do our job, our work. Finally, a few days ago, we voted on a general report about defence on European level. I see more need on the executive side. So when it is about the question, do we have then somebody taking care now about the necessary common investments in defense, for example, to build up a real defense market for military goods in the European Union, and also to have some combined and common rules for exporting military goods. You know, that is one of the problems for the industry, that Germany has a quite restricted approach, that France another one, and that is hindering, that is stopping, let me say, joint investments, joint activities, joint production of weapons. So there we need more actions on this very practical side of building up now a defense industry for Europe. And I would say that having now in mind that we are now around 11 months of war, I see not the speed we need for doing these things. I'm coming from Germany, and I tell you that all the rules for procurement, for example, for all the procedural things are extremely bureaucratic. And I think we have to recognize that we need a kind, especially in the military field, a kind of a war economy where we have to decide quickly and we have to build up the capacities quickly together with the industry. That is now needed.
And I think we have already the structures in place in Parliament. We need to use them better. I'm writing a report on critical defense technologies, and there I see a broad understanding of all political parties that we need to increase the coordination between the nations, and we need to increase the defense fund. because in the last discussions, defense fund was neglected or even made smaller than it was planned, and of course it was just a couple of months before the war started. But right now we need to invest more, and we need to find ways how we encourage the industry to work together. So the instrument of European Union should be to have funds available to encourage different industry to work together to get better solutions quicker. And of course we need to work on the very complex bureaucracy of the national procurements, which delays all the processes significantly. But I think European Parliament has the tools, we just need to use them.
Perfect. Final question, probably. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about leopards. In your estimation, still one more question about leopards. In your estimation, to what extent was there actually a technical concern about deploying or sending them to Ukraine? Something, I don't know, maybe if leopard tanks falls into wrong hands, Russians could steal some technology or something like that, and to what extent was it still only politics?
Well, not talking for Germany, but I think the whole industry today has to understand, the European industry has to understand that every piece of equipment which is in the war can be used by the Russians, which means that we have to invest in the research and development funds to develop new things, because the old ones will be known to the enemy. As easy as it is, it has always been the case. But I think in this case it was just a political discussion inside of the Social Democratic Party, because all the other parties in the parliament were agreeing to send the leopards to Germany, but to Ukraine. But I think Manfred will know better.
I don't know better than Mr. President from Bavaria. Yeah.
No, I'm sure it is a 100% political question behind, absolutely. So there are thousands of additional arguments, but they are only, let me say, to show some reasonable arguments. Finally, it was a political consideration. And I have to tell you that that's part of the Socialist Party in Germany are still in the thinking of how can we manage Moscow, how can we please, how can we build up a relationship again, how can we find a common understanding, and don't get, until now, the full understanding about the historic moment we are in. That's about a fundamental fight about our values. And the war against Ukraine is a war against our values. It's obvious, and that is not understood by parts of the socialist family. That is what you could really see. And if I may also say that the German Chancellor was also looking to the opinion polls, and yes, for sure, parts of the society are not yet convinced about a stronger engagement. But the answer is not to make tactical moves. The answer is not to please, let me say, the public opinion. In moments of history, you have to lead as Chancellor. You have to show your ideas, your convictions. You have to show this, and you have to convince citizens. And that is a second problem in Germany, that nobody is communicating in a proper way to convince people about the need and the necessary approach behind. So that's why 100% politics, and sorry to say that Germany is not doing the job it should do in this moment of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have to leave, but I will